before the national championship game took place on the Pat McAfee show starring A.J. Hawk, Nick Saban was being asked about who he would be rooting for ahead of the game between Miami and Indiana. And he took a little shot or a little dig or maybe pointed out something that he feels like is unfair about the current landscape of college football, and it sounded like this.
Who are you SEC people pulling for? Miami because it's kind of southern?
In this day and age of the culture we have now in college football, paying players, name, image, and likeness, transferring, it's an advantage for the Big Ten. I don't care. You'll never convince me otherwise.
The North?
The North.
The North?
Because people in the South would not go to the North unless you paid them.
Right.
Jeremiah Smith.
So, why don't you guys put that in your Big Ten pipe and smoke it?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's like two things there. All right, he's not lying. I mean, there's some truth to that. However, I would also go as far as saying this is why the last three national champions have been northern schools, Midwest schools. They've got more money. Because here's the reality of that comment he just made. If the South had as much money, you could compensate them the same and they'd stay then. Like, isn't that the logic to what he just said?
I mean,
it's not like the northern schools are necessarily overpaying. They're paying more because they have more. And that's like the little secret that no one wants to talk about, but it's the truth of what's happening. The last 3 years, the Big Ten has been the top of college football. And there's going to be people who argue that, well, but the rest, there's a lot of parity. The SEC has a lot of really good. So does the Big Ten, dude. It's just the perception that people in the South and ESPN shoves down your throat that you don't want to buy into. And we have to wait until bowl season or we wait until the playoffs and we look at it and go, oh, okay. Yeah, actually the worst performing Power 4 conference this year was the SEC. I mean, by and large, was the SEC. If you look at, for example, the two conferences that had, I believe the SEC had 10 teams ranked in the top 25 to start the preseason top 25, and they finished with 7, which is probably still too many. The Big Ten started with 6, and it was 6. And so it shows you that they either met expectations or they maintained that, and they maybe should have one more. The ACC, I think they started with 3, finished with 2. Like, basically here's what I drew from it. Every single conference that ESPN, who controls college football, has, those two conferences that they exclusively have the rights to, the SEC and the ACC, they never met expectations. Ranked more teams in preseason. At the end of the season, had less teams that were in the rankings. And that's because they shove this propaganda that, like, oh, the SEC's this and that. I mean, and then it's shifted. As soon as it shifted that there's no SEC team in the national championship, now it's like, well, we have the ACC too. It's exactly what Petros said yesterday. And Petros and I have talked about this because we kind of sit back and look at it and observe and just go, it's crazy that no one else draws attention to this. And yet, like, here we are, third year in a row. Big Ten team winning it all. Kurt Cignetti's, said himself, he's like, we don't have as big of an NIL fund as people think. They're obviously spending it wisely. So, yeah, there's truth to what Nick Saban said, but that's because the North just has more money.
I mean, I think guys have always come to major schools from different places, but I mean, yeah, he's right. There's some accuracy to it, but I also think that, again, college evolved. It went from neighborhood and state and city to, more, I guess, broader region, and then it expanded to entire country. You would have never seen a kid from California playing at, Penn State. You might have seen it here and there with like a Ohio State. But in general, Pennsylvania players, Ohio players, they're going to go to Ohio State and they're going to go to Penn State. They might go to Pitt. They might go to West Virginia. But it's generally like clusters of schools that, we're going to get and pick from the certain areas. And that's how it was. I mean, you think about going back to the days of Schnellenberger and how he was able to build the U. It was because he roped off the parts of Florida that were right there where Miami was, and there was a wealth of talent there. So, I mean, in theory, the evolution of it is recruitment is national. And when you turn your attention to recruiting nationally and now having NIL and having, the ability to be able to compensate the players, I mean, of course that's going to play a part in how you recruit. That just is what it is. That's the sign of the times. But nationally recruiting became a thing long before now. Now, what is it prevalent or prominent that you see a ton of kids from warmer places from the South coming to the North or to, the Big Ten schools? We never really recruited them. So there's that as well. It's you get your guys, we get our guys, and we'll see each other in a bowl game. Like, that's kind of what it was. That's what it's always been. You fight for your conference. If you go to the Rose Bowl, that meant you did something in out west in the Pac, and you did something in the Big Ten. So I don't feel like it's as big of a debate.
To your point, I actually think TV has helped with the national recruiting. Because, and I'll just say this, like 20-some years ago, one of the reasons why when I went out to Colorado, and at that point in time, like, they were rolling. Gary Barnett had them rolling. I had family out in Colorado. It's a beautiful campus. I mean, that place, to Deion Sanders' credit, if you get players out there, it's hard to say no. I mean, it's such an incredible campus, and they have everything you need out there for a football player. And obviously the fan base is awesome. Everything about it. But I got to a point where I thought to myself, my family's not going to be able to watch many games. They might be able to fly out for a game a year, but at the time they were playing the Big 8, and I wanted my parents to be a part of the journey too. I wanted my uncle and I wanted all my boys that I grew up with that, would be able to come to games to be able to be a part of it too. Like, I wanted to bring all those who I thought was my support system guys who were with me. And I was even looking, like, Stanford was like really the only West Coast school that I was looking at. And I thought to myself, like, if I can't go this far, I'm definitely not going to be able to go to the West Coast. And obviously our family wasn't in a financial position to be able to, fly like that.
Major part. That's a major part of it.
So it ended up making me think, like, I've got to stay more regional.
Yes.
Now, granted, if it was like in today's times, your parents and family can tune in, watch on whatever. I mean, you have access to so much more. So, like, I think that helped open it up some. Like, if we're not just talking about money, because there's no doubt, I mean, this is life-changing money to some families. But I think the TV portion of this, too, has played a pretty significant role in more national recruiting.
Var, when you were mentioning sort of the area was roped off, that this is our crew, that was your crew, we'll meet in a bowl game. What percentage of players would you say, ballpark, on the Penn State teams that you were on were from within the area? Like, were there out-of-staters? Were there people that did come?
But that was a part of our rope-off, though. Like, Virginia, the Carolinas.
We'll say it, Ohio. They try to get a lot of Ohio guys.
And we do get a lot of Ohio guys. Because they want to.
It's good football.
Yeah, they want to play, against Ohio.
And they'd whoop that ass, the Big 33, and they'd be like, oh, maybe we should bring those guys in there.
Yeah, we've won. We'd been here before. We won when I was there, so I can't speak for everybody's class.
We won when I was there, so I can't speak for. Yeah, I can't speak for you.
But we won when I was in the Big 33, so that's all I'm gonna say to that. And I beat
y'all like the Big 33 back then.
I beat them 2 out of 3 times, and first time I didn't play my freshman year. So I mean, we beat Ohio State when I was in school. So I'm just saying. But anyway. I will say we had a lot of players from Virginia, a lot from the Tidewater area, a lot from Richmond. We had a few guys from Maryland. That's since grown. Like, Maryland is our main fertile ground of recruitment, Maryland. And when I was there, it was Virginia, parts of Carolina, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Ohio. And that was literally it. If you looked at our roster, those were the places our players were from. You didn't see anybody from. You might have saw a few from Jersey. You might have saw a few from New York. Like, and when I say a few, like maybe 1 or 2. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't very many, but we did recruit Jersey. There were a couple more. I'm understating Jersey. Jersey, we hit Jersey. But yeah, I mean, as far as it just being PA kids, the bulk of the players were PA kids that played for Penn State. The bulk of them. And that was generally because the best players from Pennsylvania generally went to Penn State.
It just feels so much more transient now than
it is.
Before. So that's why, like when you get into the discussion about Big Ten versus the SEC, like I don't even know what that means. And I think part of the rubbing in the SEC face that they haven't won a national title in a couple of years is the fact that they were so obnoxious for so long, and just the way they talk about their conference, which I always thought was weird. Covering college football in the South was always a weird thing to me because, it was South Carolina. South Carolina wasn't competing for a national championship. And if they did, it was for a short amount of time and, 10 years ago or whatever it was, 15 years ago. But I always thought it was weird, the claiming of the conference when you were one of those other SEC teams. You've got nothing to do with Alabama winning a national title. Nothing. In fact, you're the reason they were able to do that because they could beat you, pad their record, and then ultimately use that as an argument as to why they should be ranked near the top of the rankings. The whole notion of, hey man, SEC, when you're a Vanderbilt fan, like you have nothing to do with that. You have nothing to do with what's going on at the top of the conference. And so it was always weird to see the way other schools outside of your Alabamas or your Auburn for a short time or Florida and those schools would celebrate and sort of brag about the conference. And then they would, show up and they do the SEC chants in these bowl games. And I think now it's just their comeuppance. Now everybody's going to take their shots, but since they've done that, the SEC sort of moved the goalpost a little bit. Well, it's different now.
They played a role. I mean, some of those teams were doormats.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They helped them.
It's just padding stats.
Man, we can't beat them, and they're just so darn good. They should be the national champions.
See where them boys play?
You've got nothing to. It would be like me bragging because my neighbor got a new car. It's not mine. I have nothing to do with it.
It's your neighbor.
I also think if you look at the dominance of the SEC when they were, winning national championships, it was like two schools, Bama, and it was Georgia. And, for the Big Ten to have 3 consecutive years and 3 different teams, it just goes to show you like there's a lot more parity and it's a much better conference than I think it's perceived outside of, just the Big Ten. Nationally, it needs to be, looked at more that way. And I think if you look at the number of teams that have been in the semifinals, not even just the teams that are winning it, like Penn State last year, even Penn State this year, probably what, could have been. I know some things kind of fell by the wayside, but they took the national champions to the wire. You go look at Oregon, I think next year, right on the cusp of being a team that I think, they made it to the semis this year. I know they lost, but with Dante Moore coming back, what they'll have coming back, people tend to forget that team was kind of snake bitten. They'll lose their tight end Sadiq, but they've got a ton of kids. DeCorian Moore's coming back. They've got Evan Stewart. I mean, I'm not sure what he's going to end up doing, but he didn't even play this year really. They've got a ton of talent there that'll be coming back to reload to make a national championship run. Oregon's going to be right back in the mix. I'm not sure where Ohio State's going to play a role. Obviously, I know Notre Dame, which is, not in a conference, but they're a northern school. You might as well. I think they most identify or as far as their, roster and how they look and play is probably a Big Ten school. It's just, they are the top of college football. They kind of have been. It's just no one's wanted to admit it. It took 3 national championships in a row. And now people are like, oh, well, we got to figure some things out. And if you want to say the SEC is broken, okay. I mean, look, this ebbs and flows. There's times when you look at the SEC and they've got some incredible coaching. Nick Saban's not there anymore. He's still got Kirby Smart. But, you point to Lane Kiffin at LSU. That's going to be interesting to see what they do. But outside of that, I think you've got some really, really, really good coaches in the Big Ten. I mean, Matt Campbell comes to Penn State now. Pat Fitzgerald's, at Michigan State. And I'm not saying they're going to necessarily, win the conference, but I don't know, man. He's got more resources. They're going to have better athletes than what he had at Northwestern. And they at least got to the Big Ten championship game back then. I'm not going to count them out. So I look at the conference as a whole, and I think it's, by and large not getting its due from a lot of other conferences out there, that it is the best and it is deeper than people think. And it's got better coaches than the rest. And it's got more money than the rest.